Good evening. I'd like to welcome everybody to our special call meeting, April 19th. Thank you so much for coming out. I'd like to call our meeting to order. I'd like to lead us in our prayer. And right from the prayer, we're going to the Pledge of Allegiance. Please stand. Flag of the United States of America, republic for which it stands. Mr. Higginbotham, call roll, please.
Councilman Roberts.
Here.
President Logan.
Here.
Councilman Hinton.
Yes.
Councilman Davis. Councilman Hogg.
Here.
You have a quorum, Mr. President.
Item 4, approval of our agenda. We have one item on the agenda. Is there a motion to approve that agenda as printed?
Motion to approve.
The motion by Councilman Hogg. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilman Hinton. Any questions or comments? Hearing none, Mr. Higginbotham.
Councilman Hogg.
Yes.
Councilman Hinton.
Yes.
Councilman Roberts.
Yes.
President Logan.
Yes.
Motion carries.
Item 5, new business, is a resolution of a temporary nature. It's a resolution pertaining to the moratorium that was placed on the area east of Lurleen Wallace Boulevard and south of MLK Boulevard, or the southeast neighborhood as it's sometimes referred to. Mr. Higginbotham.
Yes, sir. As you're aware, at the previous council meeting on Monday night, the council did consider a moratorium on the area east of Lurleen Wallace and south of MLK Boulevard. I think throughout the week, the discussion has been that the council would like to revisit this issue and consider it and discuss it. So with that said, I would turn this back over to you, Mr. President.
Thank you, Bruce. I know there was one, maybe two, maybe three citizens signed to speak. I know, Mr. Schwab, I saw your name on a sign-up sheet back there. So is it pertaining to this particular item? Yes. All right. What we'll do is we will kind of have our citizens who wanted to speak prior to us discussing this item. So, Mr. Schwab, if you would, thank you for coming. Please state your name and address for the record.
Stephen Schwab, 25 25th Street. I'm concerned about the idea of hiring another consultant for the development of the Northport waterfront. We've already had we've had one prize-winning plan, which I saw several years ago, which was never enacted or really actively pursued. I believe there was a plan before that one. So I just question the wisdom of possibly hiring another consultant, especially at a time when we're considering following in line with Tuscaloosa and raising the sales tax for Northport, which, as you know, a sales tax is a regressive tax, and the burden falls heaviest on the poorest people in the community. That's really all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Schwab. I think Mr. David passed. I think, David, you wanted to say a few words, and if you would, please state your name and address for the record.
Dave Pass. I'm not sure. I can't remember the address. We own the land. Dockside Northport LLC owns the Dockside Apartments in the downtown area, as well as the 3.75 acres to the south of that. So we're first in Maine, essentially, or bridge in Maine, depending on how you want to do it. Is that sufficient? Okay. And I will say I love the downtown Northport area. I also am the past chairman of the board, immediate past chairman of the Kentuck Museum Association. I chaired the fundraising capital campaign to redo that facility, And, really it was my involvement with Kentuck and moving to Tuscaloosa, because I'm not a native in Northport, that kind of made me fall in love with the land that was kind of down, kind of more towards the river. And, we've made some improvements down there. We have some plans for that. And I understand that is not really affected by this this moratorium, but I will say that moratoriums in general, are kind of scary for landowners and for business owners. It's very difficult, especially when you have potentially 7 figures invested, in some land, and then a municipality is slapping a moratorium on something. It's very hard to plan your business, and especially like in terms of real estate development. So I really don't have any skin in the game on the particular one, but as a landowner of some land that's close by. I will say that. Now, what you're trying to accomplish, I'm not really sure. In terms of master planning the area, I do like the master plan that was done. At least I really have not explored what was done, east of the river, but what was done kind of in the historic downtown area. We've been working on trying to put together something that fits, very nicely into that, and we've had some engineering hurdles, and I don't want to put the cart before the horse, but. It is kind of. I mean, we do have I really thought y'all did a really good job with the master plan that you have. Now, that being said, it would do nothing but to help Northport to have development kind of on your riverfront on to the east of the river. It's just when that M word comes up, it can be kind of scary. And as a matter of public policy, I mean, the city of Tuscaloosa has just kind of done this. They put a moratorium on apartment development and then turn around and approve new annexation of land for new apartments, and so, what's the policy? How can, as a business owner, as a landowner, can you plan for the future, when you've got a policy that might be a policy that you might rescind, here or there. So I'm not really speaking, for or against this. I'm generally in favor of development, and I really would like nice development, kind of around the river, because I mean that area in Northport is a treasure. I mean, especially around the railroad trestle. It's the second oldest operating railroad trestle in the United States. I mean, that is a historical treasure. I've actually seen the first one. It's in the Continental Divide, in Colorado, outside of Denver. And it's just, it really is an amazing treasure. So, I'm not sure what you're trying to accomplish, with the moratorium. I don't question the intentions of it, but it is, it did get my attention, when the first I read about it was, kind of in the paper. And it might make some sense to bring some stakeholders to the table for the whole area and kind of see how do we plan that area, with existing landowners, to the benefit of the city of Northport. So that's really all I have to say. So I'm not really questioning anybody's intentions or or whatnot, but it did, it was like, wow, that's a pretty aggressive policy there. So
Thank you, David. Mr. Agee, I didn't know if you wanted to come up and speak. I know you had signed up. Please state your name and address for the record.
Patrick Agee, 1641 North McFarland Boulevard, Tuscaloosa, Alabama. I'm here on behalf of Titan Enterprises. I think we own the piece of property that sits right smack dab in the middle of the area being considered for the moratorium. I don't have a bunch of information, just some, we saw it in the newspaper today. Just trying to understand the thought process behind it, and maybe a direction that you guys are wanting to go in. Nobody likes to be told what they can and can't do with their piece of property. And in the real estate business, it's all about timing. So I may not have anything today, but that could be totally different on Monday. So we're opposed to any kind of moratorium, period. But with that said, we do like the idea of master planning. I think this will be the third time since I've been in the real estate business for 18 years. So we'd like to see something master planned and then actually implemented for a change. So
Thank you.
I really don't have anything other than we're opposed to a moratorium.
Thank you. I only had 3 people sign. I didn't know if somebody else wanted to come up and speak, but if not, I would open the floor up for mayor and council. before we go into item 5A1. So I'll start with the mayor's office to just open up floor for discussion.
Thank you, Jay. And I was the one who brought this up, to propose a moratorium on that area there. And Ms. Swab, this is not redoing that plan. The company that I have been talking with, they want to take some things that we already have and then set up a strategic planning area down there and try to do what would be beneficial to the whole city. So it is not redoing another plan. And I understand those of you that have interest down there, we all do. That is definitely a diamond in the rough that we want to foster. I was able to talk with most of the council. 2 of them were not able to get back with me that day so that we could talk about this and discuss it. In looking at that area down there to start, there's all different kinds of zoning down there. Some of it is not what I would consider beneficial to that area down there. And I think the last thing that we need down there would be, and I'm not gonna call any kind of company name, but a fast food hamburger place. We don't need that down there. And I think if you put some money down there and develop your property the right way, the property next to you could very well be that. So the point was to give our staff and the council an opportunity to work with the zoning down there and to get a more unified zoning area so that it could be something that would benefit the city. And it was very clear that if somebody brought something to the table that would work down there, that it would immediately be rescinded. I mean, that was not that if you bring something here, we're not going to let you do anything for 6 months. That was not the intent. It was to probably put something on hold long enough for us to get together to address the zoning and make it more uniform and more what it needs to be for that area down there, because it's all kinds of different zones there. One for something that's beneficial, several right around it adjoining that is not necessarily going to be productive for our citizens. So that was the intent of the moratorium, and I take the blame for doing it. I tried my best to get in touch with all 5 of our council. One of them was out of state. I did talk with him quite a bit. I talked with everybody but 2 who were unable to get back with me until that night, and they did not have time to discuss anything before the council started. But that's my 2 cents.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Mayor. Councilman Roberts.
Being someone who's not from the area, you know, I don't know the history. I think I had a discussion with Jay earlier, and he said sometimes things around here are based on a 1930 invoice that 2 people disagreed about. So I'm going to keep that line, Jay. That's a great line. But you know, from my take, Northport's got plans that have never been executed ever. That just from my 10,000 feet. Excuse me. And it appears to be execution has been the biggest problem facing Northport. And that's for a variety of reasons. That's either for change in leadership, that's change in business appeal, economy, or anything like that. The moratorium is a harsh method to try and drive change. Cities and agencies do that from time to time to stop and back up. Whether or not we executed it probably as well as we could have from a framework standpoint, but regardless of whether we have a moratorium or we don't, we're really faced with trying to put together a plan, which, you know, Mr. Schwab and you know, others have said that we've had one in 2008 that I personally have never seen. I understand it got awards. Usually when you get an award, it's for something that gets executed. So, I mean, I would say you got a half award, right? You had a great plan and no execution. But regardless of whether we have a moratorium or now, I think the perfect time would be now is either under the guise of a moratorium or not under the guise of a moratorium, is that we have to put together a task force and we have to put our timeline in it. I think one of the biggest problems of government is we never put a timeline on anything. Never feels like there's a deadline. And I think you have to give yourself 90 days to engage the quasi-government agencies that are involved, the stakeholders. We've got large tracts of property where probably ordinances have been ignored, is a fair statement. We've got some rather apathetic landlords that really don't care, and we have other folks that wanna develop. You know, they really have a vested interest in that. For me, regardless of whether we're inside of the moratorium or outside, the bottom line has to be is that we have got to, and I would actually put this under the mayor's office, really need to establish a task force to put down and identify all the stakeholders, put together looking at the '08 plan, what we like, what we don't like. There's a lot of things that have changed in 11 years, obviously. The economy changed, you know, some of those things. Put down a plan and then review it and look at it in the next 90 days. I think you gotta give yourself a hard stop, quite frankly, to keep things moving. Because if you don't give yourself a hard stop, it doesn't work. Mr. Mason's here and he works automotive with me, and we work to deadlines every single day, probably more than anybody else. It's not like, well, the weather's raining. No, we're working 3 shifts, bringing people in Saturday and Sunday. We're used to deadlines. So I will have to say that if we're gonna do this, there has got to be a hard deadline on getting some things done, clearly identified. And the team that's gonna work on it has to be clearly done, and it should include other stakeholders out in the community as well.
Thank you. Councilman Hinton, I don't know if you had any,
I really don't have a dog in this fight. I'm okay with the moratorium if it will help the city. We probably didn't spend enough time discussing it earlier for us to make a intelligent decision maybe, but whatever's best for us to move forward in developing a good plan downtown.
thank you. Councilman Hogg.
I was one of the 2 that was not able to talk to Mayor Aaron on Monday. I was busy at work, and she did reach out to me, and we did briefly discuss council meeting here at City Hall. And I told her then, and I'll say that again today with my discussion with her, that I believe in the principle, I believe in the intent of what we are trying to accomplish. Her intent is to not to let that specific area turn into something that we're going to look back 10, 15 years down the road and say it was a mistake. She wants to make sure that she's doing all that she can to put the right things in place and the right types of business, et cetera, there in that spot. So I do agree with that. When we discussed here at the council meeting, I know it was a brief discussion during the council meeting. There was a lot of things that we didn't probably think of or address at the moment that we probably wouldn't even think of. The next morning, wake up, phone starts ringing, emails come through, people ask. I guess they were contacting me because I'm the retail chairman, and they're saying, Jeff, this whole time you've been saying Northport's open for business, yet the council has decided to put a moratorium on potential business. Now, I didn't think of it that way when it was presented, and I tried to explain that that was not the intent. However, I saw what the perception was in the community. So at that point, I'm sure others may have asked as well, but I did ask that we revisit this and we look at it, not to necessarily lift the moratorium or to not lift the moratorium, but to have a more open discussion and try to make sure that everybody's on the same page, that we've dotted all the I's, crossed all the T's. I think when we look at this, maybe it'd been better if we had have discussed a little bit more, had a better plan of action, and basically I just want to sit here today and discuss with everybody on, what is the further details of what this will or it won't encompass, you know, and not just maybe as a geographic territory. What are we trying to do? What is our end goal? What is the best for that area? And as Councilman Roberts had said a minute ago, he discussed the task force. I know we've had plans in the past. There's things that we can do, I believe, as a council and as a mayor, as staff, and even as citizens that, and stakeholders around the area, that we can do something to make sure that we are on the right track of carrying out the plan that the mayor sees that this area can be. So, once again, not for, not against, just want to make sure that we have plan of action, that we follow through with that plan of action, and that we do all that we can to make sure that that area is what we see it to be and what we want it to be. That's my take on this.
Thank you, Councilman. I guess as far as my perspective of it, the mayor did try to reach out to me. Of course, I was at work, and we finally saw each other right before we get ready to bang the gavel. I will say, to her credit, I think her intent is to not say, hey, she's going to put the pause button. But unintentionally, we've created a little bit of fear. We've created, a moratorium. So I think the perception is that we're stopping growth and development. That's probably not what we're trying to do. Although I think we could have went about it another way, and I had a conversation with Councilman Roberts just briefly. But I do agree that we do need to look at where we're trying to go in that south. I call it the southeast community. That's basically what it is. And if we're going from River to MLK, that's the southeast community. And yeah, zoning may be patchwork, and that's where we've got to dig in and get to work on it. I actually like the idea of creating a plan of action. I was scratching some notes down as everybody was talking. In development, we had a citizen come to speak. It's about timing. So what do you do when, and these are questions I have of myself, because again, when we pushed it through, woke up the next morning, I said, look, we might have tried to unravel the knot, and it's hard to do that. So in development, it is about timing, but it's also having a really good plan. I do like the approach, but just looking at it again, I don't think that's the perception we need to give with the momentum that we've got. We did have a really good plan. That 08 plan is really good. I like some of the elements of it. It did win an award just because of the nature of how it was presented. It was kind of citizen-driven. Planning board had their say in it. So I do like some of the elements of that 08 plan. And it may be to where you can use as a basis starting forward. Again, only speaking as a resident and a representative of the district, I've spoken to just citizens, not even community builders or developers. Their concern is, after 6 months, if you enact a moratorium, then what happens? Then you're waiting another 6 months. Then you're going to wait another 6 months, and then you're right back to where you started with the pause button. And man, we really got some good momentum all over the city, and I just feel like we can do this without necessarily a moratorium if we take some elements about everybody. What we discussed was this plan of action moving forward. So I would like to see us re-engage existing stakeholders, meaning property owners, citizens. I wrote it, scratch down, planning board members, utilize the resources that are already in the house. So the 2008 plan, dust it off. Bruce has got a copy. Tony, we'll make sure we get you a copy. I just think we ought to just look at it to see what actually made it a good plan. Probably need to update it a little bit. I think the mayor's office needs to really engage the school board, because I think from their standpoint, they are a large landowner down there. And I think we really need to engage them. Just this is the time to do it. If we're going to do it, this is the time. I think mayor, swing the stick. I've said it before, swing the stick with them. And I think we ought to engage the Housing Authority Board. That's another landowner. So when you go to your stakeholders first and understand what are we doing, why are we doing it, and how do we fit in, and use some existing resources. We got a retail consultant. I think you need to start engaging him. I think he needs to be holding hands with every single landowner, regardless if we do something or not. I would engage ALDOT. So does transportation, so does growth. I mean, if they've got some plans down the pipe that may be coming up, we need to engage some ALDOT stakeholders. So the whole thing to me, again, but you can't do it when you're under moratorium, because it sends the wrong message, in my opinion. Because after 6 months, if you don't have a plan, then what happens? I just think you develop the plan first, see what you got, engage everybody, and then if it looks like you may be having something that you don't want, then you can probably look at going that route. But to have some flexibility and allow everybody the flexibility to look at where we want to go with that area, because I'll be the first to tell you, I've been preaching it. When that district finally gets